Hello there my friends, welcome to my another video. If you remember, last week we finished building and painting this tiny 1/72 scale T-72m2 Moderna, which I am still really proud of because, as I've mentioned in that video, I am the one that created this model and got it 3D printed. And now if you go to my Patreon and subscribe to the second tier, you can also get it yourself, or you can go to my cults account, which also includes this model. So yeah, I am really stoked about this little model, and I decided I am going to make a little diorama for it because a model show is coming up in my city and I really wanted to join it because I've never joined it before, but I wanted to make something special. So over this past week I've been working on a tiny diorama for this T-72, and today I am going to show you how I did it. So grab yourself something to eat or something to drink, make yourself comfortable, and let's get right into building this. First thing that's very important in making your own diorama is perhaps planning it out on a paper or in your computer or something like that. Here you can see I planned out the general shape and what I wanted to have on the diorama. So then using this little sketch I cut out myself a square of styrene, and I started shaping it and making sure that everything will fit together. As you can see, I want the house right here, so what I start doing now is cutting the house out of another piece of styrene. This is styrene made by Ammo, I believe, and it's carving foam, I think, or it's meant to be for carving stuff into it and things like that. So it's really good for buildings with bricks and all of that kind of stuff. So I measured myself two rectangles that will form the walls of the building, and then I stack them to the base using toothpicks, just so I can have them held there and have the house basically removable for later painting. Then I also stuck a toothpick between them too, so they hold together, and I glued them together with PVA. Of course, houses can be constructed in various different ways, but this is the one that I chose as a person that's never made a 72nd scale house before, and the one that I did before was made out of ordinary plastic. But as you can see here, the Moderna nicely fits next to the house, and it points around the corner, which is what I wanted. So now I just add some more detail that I would like on the diorama. I cut out a little drop on one side, and then I glued on this little sidewalk. Then I also cut out a roof according to the pieces of the house that I already had assembled. And I just glued it all together and let it dry for, well, I left it overnight. But now that everything is glued, I can start some texturing process. I wanted the house to have this texture I see on a lot of houses here in Slovakia that I used for reference on this house. So I used diluted Tamiya putty for this. It's essentially the same technique you would use for a cast armor texture on a tank, but I just use it around the house and I make it a little rougher. The ground, I used Ammo by MIG, acrylic vignettes mud for this. I used dry earth ground because it's light, so I imagined it would be easier to paint, and I just stapled it on. I didn't do any texture, any groundwork with clay this time because it was just supposed to be flat ground. So I just stapled on the acrylic mud, and then I just threw on some gravel to represent the rocks and well, road. And then I started working on the house. First thing I did was cut out some holes for the doors. I used my hobby knife for this. and I just gouged out that part that I didn't want there. It doesn't need to be too deep. You could even just make a hole straight through and then make interior, but I wasn't making interior for this house, so I just made it a little shallow, but still, you know, with a hole inside so I could fit some doors in. I also made these little cracks around the house because this is also a thing I noticed in references. Then I enhanced them with a toothpick just so they are a little deeper and wider and, well, better to see. I made the gutter out of an ordinary straw. I could have bought one or printed one, but didn't have time, so I just made it out of a straw. And then I started making some tiles on the roof, again according to references. I just cut out some, basically squares. I just made lines across this way, and then I made lines across the other way, and that made some cool looking squares. And then I enhanced those with a toothpick as well, just so they are a little bit easier to see. Then I made the doors out of ordinary styrene. I just made a little rectangle, and then I put two tiny rectangles onto it to represent a door hinge. And I also used clear plastic from a old packaging to make broken windows. You can see me here just cracking it and breaking it, and it was actually harder than I expected. It's quite thick. I didn't think it would be this thick, but it is. I glued this on with PVA because I didn't want it to fog up, and PVA glue dries nicely into a transparent finish. And then I also scraped in some, well, basically they're bricks on the side of the house. Then I started painting the house. I tried one technique that I've never tried before, but I really wanted to try. I tried sponging. So what I did was I took this art sponge that I found for €1 in a random shop. I loaded it with color, unloaded it just a tiny little bit, and then I started sponging the house. I was already happy with the color, so I didn't want any particularly heavy coverage. But I started sponging, and I sponged with white, then I sponged with grey, then I sponged with black, and I just built up this effect of an old burned down in-war house, which was what I was going for. Then I painted the doors with ordinary flat brown from Vallejo. This is an acrylic color that was diluted with water. I just painted it on, and then I slapped on some buff while it was still wet, and I wet blended it into this weird woodish looking color. I think maybe not, probably not, but I'm still pretty happy with how it looked. I also decided to paint some ornaments on the tiles on the roof, because this is what I also noticed in Google Street View that I was using for references of these old houses. And I'm not sure if these were old and replaced or they were really just ornamental, but I think they look like fish, maybe? I was told they were replaced, but I thought they were a little too specifically placed to be you know, a replacement, not an ornament, but it's hard to tell. I really like the detail, so I put it in. I used flat brown for this, and then I highlighted it with lighter brown, almost orange. Then I did some chipping on the roof. You can notice that these roofs chip into this white grayish color, so each tile got these chips on top of it to give some more realism to the house. Then I started painting on some moss. I used Russian uniform green for this, from Vallejo again. I diluted it, and then I started stippling it wherever I thought moss would collect. I don't think it's correctly placed, but I put it above the gutter, on the sides of the roof, and also on bottom of the house, and on its sides and on its corners, and wherever I thought it would look pretty. I really like this effect because it brought some interesting color to the house. But with this step, the house was basically completed. It was time to work on the ground. I first went over the entire ground with flat brown that was heavily diluted, almost as a wash. Then I went over that with buff that was heavily diluted, almost as a wash, and they were blended together, wet blended, just to create this ground color-ish, I think. I also added in some darker brown in some spots to create fake shadows. And then I gave the entire groundwork a buff dry brush. Then using a grey dry brush, I highlighted the gravel that's meant to represent the gravel road that the tank is sitting on. I picked out some of the rocks with different shades of buff, grey, deck tan I believe, black even, just randomly to create some more interest. This wasn't particularly visible at the end, but I was pretty happy with it. Then I started adding the grass. I first spread some PVA glue wherever I wanted it, and I started with coarse turf from Woodland Scenics. I applied it again wherever I felt like it would look good. This is supposed to represent the taller standing grass that I can't replicate without a grass applicator. And then I just added some static grass, just poured it on, let it spread, and then I dapped it off, leaving only the grassy patches that I wanted. And I just left it dry overnight because I fixed it with diluted PVA, and that takes a lot of time. Afterwards I highlighted some of the groundwork with a brown wash, just so you can see all of the detail that I added. Then I painted some of the grass patches with different shades of green to bring some more variety and realism to it. This was just diluted paint that I dabbed onto the grass, and it just soaked it up. And then last detail that I really like, I took out 3 very bright flower colors, and I just randomly painted some blobs of color to create create basically flowers, but they're not really three-dimensional, they're just painted on. I just randomly placed them wherever I felt like it would look good. Anyway, that's the diorama done, so here is the final presentation of the model, and then we have some, you know, outro. Yeah, I think I crossed my diorama line from the previous ones. I know this diorama isn't anything special in this YouTube modeling world. It's probably quite mid compared to that, even bad you could say, but compared to my older dioramas that you can see on my channel, this is a huge improvement, and I am really proud of how it came out. I mean, it could have been better, it always can be better, but I need to learn to look into the camera, not at my reflection, because then it looks very weird. But yeah, I am really happy about this diorama. I am definitely gonna take it to the show, and I have one more planned for it that I'm gonna show you next week, which is gonna be actually after the show, because I am doing this in a little bit of a different time frame, as you can imagine. But yeah, I am really happy with how this turned out. If you would like to support me and help me work on more of these projects, perhaps get some better things to laminate my dioramas, or build or get better products for the ground, please consider subscribing to my Patreon. I have both some photos from my projects over there, and I am also uploading some 3D models that you can download and then print yourself, like this tiny T-72. And also, what I'm gonna do next week, I actually teased it in this diorama. I'm pretty sure you can figure out what I'm gonna do next week, considering what I added to the diorama. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this model. Perhaps you found it somewhat helpful. Maybe there is something that you could use in your own projects to, you know, make them better, or you are just starting out and want to try making a diorama. Whatever it is, I just hope it helped you. I know I am really happy with this, and I'm gonna continue forward with dioramas, and I'm gonna try getting better at it. So for now, still thank you for watching this video. I'm gonna see you next week with a really special project, special for me, and I'm gonna explain why. And that's gonna be it. So subscribe, like, perhaps comment, and I will see you next week. Thank you for watching this tiny little project.